Hey guys, welcome back to Paradise. So today I'm here to talk about money and financial advice. And I know what you're thinking.
Hey, this guy's not Dave Ramsey.
Well, that's right, but I am Ramsey, and the difference between me and him is one, I've never been in debt, and two, I don't charge you to get my advice. So let's just get some free advice today. So ever since I was younger, when I first started working, I always pretty much loved to look at my numbers and how much I got paid, and I always thought it was really exciting to see like that paycheck come in and be like, wow, I'm making so much money, which back then I was making like whatever, $6 an hour, so not very much in today's world, but it seemed like a lot to me then, and especially when I was working at home and I wasn't paying rent, and the money, I never really used it for anything. I was just working. So I always took my numbers right when I first started getting a job, and I take my numbers, and you take what you're getting paid per week, or if you get paid monthly or however you get it, and then you multiply it by whatever to get to the year total, so you can see like, what am I getting paid for the whole year? And you get that number, and this is after taxes, so this is your actual chunk of money that you're getting paid. And I'd always look at that and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money. And then when I moved out of my parents' house, I started doing it again, and I looked at it and I was like, all right, well, it's bigger now. You're getting some raises, so you think you're doing good. And you look at it and you're like, all right, whatever, you're making like $20,000, $30,000, and you're like, all right, I'm doing good. But I always did it, and once I moved out, I started doing this even more strategically, and I took that number and I started subtracting all these numbers that, well, your expenses. So what I did was, so you take your big number, now you got to minus everything that you are guaranteed to have to spend that year. So you got your rent or your mortgage, your car insurance, your phone, electricity, utilities, like that, things that you're guaranteed to have to spend. No matter what, you're going to have to use or have that money set aside in order to survive that year. So that money's already gone. That's how I look at it. We look at it as future debt. So at the beginning of the year, January 1st, you look at your total and you're like, I got $30,000 coming into this year. It's going to be great. All right, rent alone, whatever, it's probably $700, $800. So that's going to be almost a little over probably $8,000 right there. So take that out, you're already down to whatever, say $22,000 now. You take out your utilities, you take out your like your heating, your utilities, you take out your car insurance, your phone, your internet, like things that you think that you have to have. So that's already gone. And then look at your number again and be like, all right, well, that's not as much as I thought I made, but you have to pay for that. It has to be gone. So then after that, once you get that number, which is way smaller than your original number, you look at it again and be like, okay, well, that's still a decent amount of money, to survive on. But now we're not including food or gas. Those are all variables. So those are numbers that you can tweak. So you look at that and you can kind of guess if you want to and just be like, all right, how much do I think I spend a month on food? How much do I think I spend a month on gas? Plug that into your number. That's going to drop it significantly too because, well, you have to have food and you have to have gas in order to go get food. So then you look at it again, and then, so that's kind of your base number after that. That's kind of pretty much all your big things that you're going to buy. Then you start looking at that number, and it's probably around like 10,000 or something like that, or under, or maybe a little above, whatever. But you look at that, and that's definitely just a fraction of what you're actually making for the year. So now you look at that again, and now every time that you go out to buy something that's not already a given in that list that you already subtracted, you look at that number and subtract it out of it. And then you just start calculating, like, okay, so I have $10,000 for this year. That's how much money I have to spend. And that's how we look at it. We're like, okay, we're making 30, but in the long run, you literally only have 10. So that's how you have to think of it in your mind. $10,000, whatever your number is, I'm going with 10, to take everything else out of it. So if you want to go out to eat, if you want to go to movies, you want entertainment, you want sporting events, you want concerts, you want skiing, anything like that comes out of there. Drinking, smoking, all these extra things that you don't need in order to survive come out of that. So now start subtracting those numbers out of there and then see how fast that goes down. Because you eating out, if it's just yourself, whatever, it could be $10 a day. It's like if you go out and eat once, it's probably $10 a day. And most people, do Starbucks, do something for lunch, something quick. you're probably eating out at least 4 or 5 times a day, or not a day, 4 or 5 times a week. So now just take that out. If you take $10 a day times 365 days a year, now subtract that out of your 10,000 and you're going to be down a whole lot more. And that's just for eating out. So I always looked at it as like, well, I don't really need to eat out. I need to say, I just wanted to save that money. I'm like, well, I can go to the grocery store and get food and eat at home. And I can bring food to work for lunches and stuff like that, because I always sat at work and I'd go on lunch and I'm like, well, I only got a half an hour, so I don't really have time to go anywhere. So then you end up buying something at the store that you're working at. I just worked at grocery stores, or like Lowe's or anything like that. They'd have like snacks and stuff up front. So you're like, I'll just grab something like that, or a vending machine. And that's going to be like crazily priced. So if you're saying making, we'll just say $10 an hour, and then you go on lunch, that's an hour long, and you go out for lunch and you spend $10, you just worked 1 hour of your 8 hours that day just to pay for your lunch to go to work. So it's like, it's crazy to think about numbers when you start thinking how much you're actually spending just to go to work. Between your vehicle, your clothing, you're like, everything is just having to pay just to get to work. Because I'm like, if you didn't have to go to work, you wouldn't have to have whatever, like, you technically wouldn't have to have a vehicle. But it's just like all these things, your gas, like all this stuff would be lower. So most people would actually make more money if they didn't go to work, because they actually spend so much money just to go to work, to make money, to pay for their big house that they're never in because they're at work. So it's always crazy to look at the numbers. And then once you get that number and you start subtracting everything out of it, you're going to get I don't know, you'll start realizing that it's a lot lower than what you think. You're not actually making this crazy absorbent amount that you see in your paycheck, and you're like, oh, that's bank. And I'm like, no, it's not going in the bank. That's already gone. So I always looked at it as like, so if you're making 30,000, that first number is already gone. So then you're literally working. You could divide that by how many hours you're working per dollar, and then you could be like, well, I'm working literally 4 or 5 months out of the year just to pay for my apartment or just to pay for my mortgage. And that's crazy, because you're like, whatever, that whole chunk of time that you're working, you're literally not making anything. It's just going to survive, just going to your house, going to your car, going to all this, because society has gotten so expensive that you literally have to work half the year in order to pay for the stuff, in order for you to go to work. So that's kind of my tip for the day. Just break down your numbers. Like, just see how much you're actually getting paid. We have a concept of future debt we're going to do in another video, but you need to look ahead. And this is how people get into debt. They just like, I'm making this much money, I can buy this. But they can't, because at the end of the year, that money's already gone. It's already spent on something else. And we're not even talking about like vehicle issues or upkeep on, or health issues or getting new tires, like all these little things. They're big issues, but you don't expect them to happen every year. So these are things that are just random surprises that are just like, oh, whatever. But you can keep track of at least your insurance, your rent, your car payment. Like a lot of these things you can track, and you're like, okay, I know. And then you can start kind of lowering some of these things, and you get to decide, like, do I want to eat out today, or can I just go to the grocery store and save some money? So that's my tip for the day. Break down your numbers, check out, see what your numbers come out to be, and then just keep that little number that you're left with at the end of the year. And every time you go and buy something, just look at it and be like, all right, well, I'm only making $5,000 this year, so is this whatever $1,000 TV worth it? Because now I'm down to $4,000. And just so you know, if you keep spending it, that's how you get into debt. You're going to be spending money you don't have. People don't really look at it into the future, but you need to look at it in the future and be like, I have bills coming up. Like, usually right after you buy that expensive thing, your whatever car insurance comes up, and then you're like, oh, I was doing so well. And just because you get a raise doesn't mean you go out and spend it right away. It's like, that means you're making a little bit more, but that means more usually comes out for other things. So, just keep an eye on that. That's kind of my tip for the day. It's free. Hopefully you use it. Get out there, save some money. And the best tip is go live in your vehicle. That's going to save you a lot of money. That's going to take whatever, $500, $600, $700 out of your rent every month. So yeah, living in your car. Awesome. If you need more tips, check out ParadiseOnPennies.com or on YouTube. We'll give you more tips and inspire you to get out there and live your life. See you out there, guys. Bye.